you walk in a lot of different homes, right? And one home is $7 million, the other one's $7 million. Well, why does this one feel so much better? Is it the fit and finish? Is it the finishes? Or is it that there was emotion that was controlled in the space by using certain materials in certain ways and the way it was finished? And so we really like to say that we bring all that together. Most everyone on our team is very architecturally inclined, so we love design, but not so much that we are the final say. We just want to make sure that the client and the architect get that much more than what they were expecting.
Welcome to the Builder Straight Talk podcast with your host, Michael Creasa. Get the unfiltered truth from the trenches of construction, real estate, and funding. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.
What happens when a builder stops thinking like a contractor and starts thinking like the guardian of a vision? When it's not just about building the house, but it's protecting the idea, the emotion, the experience, even before it ever hits the ground. Hey, my friend, in this week's episode, I get to sit down with trapper Roderick, and he is a fifth-generation builder working in Park City and also Los Angeles in the luxury markets, and he's building some of the most architecturally ambitious homes you'll ever see. But what makes Trapper more different, can I say that? What makes him even more different is he doesn't just build homes, he sees himself as an architectural guardian. The conversation goes way beyond the construction. We're talking about design, emotion, capital, and what it really takes to build at the highest level. Now, here are just some of the things that we talked about in this conversation. Why most builders are losing money and they don't even realize it. The real reason a $7 million home can feel completely different from another $7 million home. How pre-construction alignment determines whether a project succeeds or fails, the biggest mistakes builders make creating a job instead of a business, and how Trapper approaches capital, risk, and spec building at the highest level, and so much more. And speaking of so much more, pretty please help us a little bit here, so much more. With a click of a mouse, please subscribe, like, and share. When you do that, it helps get us into the algorithm so more builders can see what we're doing here at Builder Straight Talk. As always, there's no advertising here, just great, compelling content with successful builders. So pretty please, I'm asking with a click of your mouse, subscribe, like, and share. And without further ado, let's jump into this interview with Trapper Roderick. Well, Trapper, I want to start off by saying thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know as a fifth-generation builder, you're spinning many plates and trying to get a lot done. So the fact that you would book an hour aside to do this means a lot to me and obviously my listeners. So welcome to the call, my friend.
Oh, thanks, Michael. I really appreciate it.
So let's start off with, the authority thing. I know this is the most boring part of any interview, but tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what you build, where, price point, and the reason for that. It does establish you as the authority, and it gives us a jumping point to go from.
Oh, well, thanks for asking. Yeah, so we mostly focus on the Park City market. We do have an office in Los Angeles. We built some of the most high profile homes you could really ever imagine particularly in Los Angeles. I'm a fifth generation builder, come from both commercial and residential spaces. And we like to see ourselves kind of considered as like the architectural guardian. So many of these dreams come up for either the architect or the client, yet it just doesn't ever become possible to get built. And so we like to see ourselves as the right team to really get that put together.
So let's unpack that a bit. When you say you're the guardian, go deeper into that. What does that mean? And what does that mean for you personally?
Oh, hey, there's so many fun details in every home. And, sometimes it's specified and sometimes it's not. But really, as being the guardian, I want to make sure the house becomes the best it possibly can be. Not just that I followed the plans perfectly, because we all can miss something. Maybe it's not on the plans. So as we're moving along, I want to communicate really well with the architect. And I want to make sure that their vision's coming to life and that the emotions that they were essentially intending to have be in place really also come to life. You walk in a lot of different homes, right? And one home is $7 million, the other one's $7 million. Well, why does this one feel so much better? Is it the fit and finish? Is it the finishes? Or is it that there was emotion that was controlled in the space by using certain materials in certain ways and the way it was finished? And so we really like to say that we bring all that together. Most everyone on our team is very architecturally inclined, so we love design, but not so much that we are the final say. We just want to make sure that the client and the architect get that much more than what they were expecting.
If you were to describe perfect, would it be your meeting with the client first and then introducing them to an architect? Or the architect's already coming to you with a client, and then now you have to kind of fit it's almost like they're the band, and now you're coming in as the, what would I say, rhythm guitar versus the lead.
For sure. And I would say it's really kind of a 50-50. Either way, we do this process and we kind of call it the alignment. So pre-construction, it's kind of a hot term in the market these days, but pre-construction really should be, in my eyes, aligning everybody. So whether we were first or we were second, it's the same process. Either I'm helping the client pick the right architect for them, or the architect is bringing a client to me because maybe I am the better fit for this particular client or for this particular job. We really help align the engineer, the interior designer, and the client and the builder all on the same page. We kind of create an A to Z, budget from the beginning before a house is even designed sometimes, which kind of allows the client to understand how the design choices they're making are impacted. So there is really no perfect way, but we do go through like that same process either way.
This kind of harkens the saying that the devil's in the detail. So I can see really getting involved in, as you said, the pre-construction stage, because you're setting the stage for what's to unfold. But do you find, getting back to the architect for a second, you're looking at a set of plans and going, yeah, everything looks great on paper, but there's things that really won't reproduce well in real life. And then how do you politely cross that bridge not to offend the architect, but in essence, you are protecting the home buyer because you want them to get what they really wanted.
For sure. I mean, and that's kind of why, again, why we call it the alignment. Because if I understand what the client's vision is from the very beginning, then maybe that a ridiculously absurd, expensive detail is worth it, right? Is this house a legacy house that their family's going to live in for forever and it's going to be passed down from generation to generation? Or is this an investment property? Or is this a house that's going to be built and sold? It's all going to change. But I think because I've been involved in enough of these different type of projects, and we actually prefer spec home, like that's our main go-to is building homes to sell. But when we build a spec home, we're not cutting corners, we're building it as if it was our own or better. It just happens to be for sale, to the highest bidder. I think when you really have like all those things in mind, then you can really get to the bottom of it. Simply like, hey, architect, this is the coolest detail. I want to build this. Trust me, I do. I know the client can't justify this price. Or opposite, maybe it's, hey, client, just so you know, this detail is super cool and super expensive, but here's your ROI on it, or you're not going to have an ROI on it. And you're not meant to be the bad guy, but if you're the person aligning the team, then it all comes and falls on me in the end anyway, right? If I just didn't say something, then the build's going to go terribly. But if we can get all those kinks out of the way in that pre-construction phase, then the build goes super smooth.
So I guess the key to this would be setting the expectations right at the beginning.
Mhm.
Because if the client's driving, hey, Mr. Architect, look, they came in a Hyundai, but they've got taste for a Ferrari. There's got to be that marriage somewhere in the middle between ideally what they want and what they can afford.
Yeah, and I would say that that's probably the most common problem that most people have hiring an architect. And it's not the architect's fault. The client's telling them all the things they want, but they're not they have unrealistic expectations of what something could cost, right? I mean, a 3,000 square foot home, a 5,000 square foot home can sway $10 million depending on what you put in it.
When you're doing your spec homes, that's one thing. You're also doing the custom, but your clientele are ranging anywhere from, maybe a couple million all the way up to 10, $15 million.
Mhm.
So a very, how do I say it, specific clientele. Do they know what they want, or are they fickle? They see something in a magazine, you're going down the path to do it, and then suddenly phone rings, change order. Instead of the chrome plated light fixtures, we want the gold. How do you eliminate that, or is that something that you actually encounter?
It happens on all levels. It doesn't matter if they're building a $2 or $3 million home or if they're building a $10 or $20 million home. In the spec world, that's really why I like the spec world is you get to work with amazing architects who have got great vision, who are creating an emotional story. So somebody walks in and they just have to have it, right? So that's why I like spec. Now on the flip side, someone building a home, they're going and they're walking through other homes and they go, "Oh my gosh, I have to have that. I need to incorporate that in my house." Or they see it in a magazine, "Oh, I have to have that." Or, "Oh my gosh, I stayed at this rental and I had this." Like, we need more of that. Those little things are what can drastically, start changing someone's budget. The amount of times I've had full redesigns because of what someone experienced walking into something else, it's just crazy.
You're doing spec and custom. How many on average spec would you do a year?
If I had it my way, I would do 80% of them spec, and I would do one awesome custom a year. But currently, it's like flipped. We're like 25% spec, 75% custom.
So when you say have it your way, is that what the market's dictating right now, or that's a preference that you and your partner have kind of forged together?
We just don't have it. Like, we don't internally have the capital to make that possible right now. But if we did, that would be the change, and my partner would agree. All my partners would agree with that, because then we're the decision makers with the architects and the interior designers, and the only emotional decisions are being made off of, will this have an ROI? And maybe there's not a direct correlation to ROI, but maybe will this house sell faster because this is a wow feature, things like that. So you really just got to get all the creatives together and come up with the best possible solution for that unique set of circumstances. I've heard from a few people in our industry, you know, no home will ever be built the same, right? You'll never build the same home on the same lot more than once, right? And so every spec home is a unique opportunity to build a one of a kind.
Yeah, when you talk about capital, oh, lucky day, you're talking to a podcast host that's funded by private equity. So
I
we'll
know,
we'll
right?
have to unpack that later on in the conversation. Let's go back. And again, I know you've been interviewed so many times, but you've got a really impressive story in the fact that you're fifth generation. And the question I've got to ask, and apologies for doing it, was the die cast as soon as you were born? Like, there you are out of the womb. The first thing they give you is a little toy hammer and wooden nails. Or was there ever a time in your evolution growing up that building was the last thing that you wanted to do? You just want to get out and do something different.
I always knew that I wanted to be in the industry. Like, even when I was small, I think, if someone was looking from a distance, they probably would have thought like, "Oh, that he's never going to be in it." Because the reality was, like, my parents were very young when I was born, under 20. And so if I wanted to spend time with my dad, I was on a job site. I mean, the amount of times my dad handed me a box of nails and a hammer and said, "Okay, I got to go do this." And I just had to figure out what I was going to do. I'd build dog sheds and stuff like that. So as much as I hated the job site, like, I loved seeing those creations come to life. Like, from my dad, I loved being in the wood shop with my grandpa. Like, I really enjoyed the artistic ability in seeing it really come together. I always knew, but I always kind of thought I wanted it more on the architect side. So I actually studied architecture for a little while. And then I was doing a job for my dad, actually. I was like a teen, and he had offered me a lump sum of cash to sheet a roof, like, while he was out of town. And it was a larger amount of money for me at the time, and it was really a job that I had no business, doing. But he's just like, "Yeah, if you could do it, I'll give you this." So I proved him wrong. I called my friends. I was like, "I just need you to lift stuff to me on the roof. I'll handle the rest." And he came back, and I made my money, and that's when I knew I loved business, right? Like, wow, I just made as much money as I would in a month, but I made it over a weekend, and that was pretty cool as a 16-year-old. So I knew I wanted to be in business, which kinda led me down the path of, okay, do I want architecture? Do I wanna, I and that's really when I knew I wanted to build spec homes, because I loved the architecture, because I love the way a room could make you feel, but I was too hands-on and not patient enough to sit behind a computer and just design. So
That takes, there's a certain skill set to sit there with a, slide rule and pencils and stuff like that
Oh,
versus being
totally.
outside and having the tactile feel. And I think there's a different skill set mentally to be able to have that vision, if you will, because the guy's drawing something from his head and transcribing it onto paper
Mhm.
versus you're taking that vision and now making it a reality. So the two gel together really well, but they're
Totally.
two distinct skill
Yeah.
sets. The thing I'm going to ask, you mentioned your grandfather there. I have to believe that he was a really strong influence and a role model for you and a mentor. Would that be
Mhm.
reasonable to say?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my grandfather and my great-grandfather, they ran Jacobson Construction, which is one of the largest commercial companies on the West Coast. They still exist today. They're an ESOP. So they were employee owned. They were sold to all the employees a number of years ago. Super cool. I love driving down the street and seeing the Jacobson name. It's special to my heart. But he made a difference in the state of Utah. I mean, he made a difference in a lot of places, but hundreds of employees, really got to help change people's lives, provide a living for them and things like that. So really, really cool. And then just such honest people with so much integrity. And that really carried over into like what he taught me. And even I remember like school projects, like my grandpa was always the guy I went to. Like if I was going to build a solar system, who's going to help me? My grandpa, right? And I'd have the best solar system you could ever imagine. And it wasn't just built to look cool. It was engineered and very precise and to scale and all that stuff. And he just taught me like if you're going to do it, like just go 100% of the way and do it extremely right.
Well, then I just got to jot this down. Roderick has a God complex building solar systems. Okay. Note to self.
Yeah, no, it was amazing being around him for sure.
There's the other side of the story that there's the commercial element. And
Mhm.
would that be what side of the family is that was doing commercial versus you guys doing residential?
Yeah, so the Jacobson side did all commercial, and all growing up, they were building high rises and LDS temples and things like that. And then my dad was in the trades, framing, and then became a general contractor doing residential as I grew up. So just two totally different things, but I just had more of a passion for the residential. I think I would have been a much easier choice to go down the commercial path. There's definitely more easy money in it, and definitely you're not toying with people's emotions, where houses are the largest investment that usually anybody will make in their lifetime, and it's the place they live, so they do get highly sensitive about it. But I don't know, that's part of the fun in it too.
Yeah, I guess the commercial side, it's all ROI driven. So the emotion is replaced by the sheer economics of, will this place make money? What's the best and I don't want to say cheapest, but what's the best and affordable way that we can put a product up?
Yeah.
Versus when you get into residential, you're dealing with emotions and families and everything else. I think, and help me with this one. Is this where many builders fall down? Because unlike commercial, which is a business, cut and dry, all about the numbers, do you find in the residential space, many builders have created a job for themselves versus a viable business that they can sell?
Oh, I would say 95% of them, maybe even 99% of them. It's kind of a part of I would say, my life's goal, not just in building homes, but educating um, other builders. I've been guilty of that exact thing. I created a job for myself, but I also had a bunch of other experiences in business that were successful, that I knew that I didn't want to be a slave to my business. And so many great people. I'll even use my father as an example, right? Like he has built some of the most amazing homes that you'll ever see in your life. And the way he runs his business versus the way I run mine, we are the same brand. We do work well together. He is so good at the craft of being on site, but he doesn't have a massive team around him. He does the work, right? And that's cool and great, but it provides a great living for him, and that's how he wants to do it. And he's great and super successful doing that. But that's not how I want to do it. I want to be able to build a team that can build a house, build a team that can respect our processes, and then also be able to spend time with the client and understand that client a little bit more. And so there's a better checks and balances. And I'm not saying that his way is the wrong way. I will just have a more sellable business than his will, where he has created wealth through jobs, where I will create wealth through selling a business one day. And there's so many builders. Me and my dad are lucky. We've been able to have amazing jobs that have provided a very great living for us. But there's so many people out there who are great at their craft. And there's a saying out there: you can be a really, I think Mark Williams, I told you I'd introduce you to him. He says this all the time. You can be really great at building homes and fail at business, and your business will fail. But you can be really bad at building homes, but if you're good at business, you can still succeed. And that kind of sucks if you think about it, but it's the truth. So
Yeah.
how do you be great at both? That's
That
the
would
real
it's
question.
that's kinda like the McDonald's model. They never pledge that they're making a good burger. They're making a
Mhm,
consistent burger. So, no matter where in the world you go, it's gonna be the same shitty burger, but the expectation's already been set.
mhm.
That's the business model. I wanna go deeper into this, but before we do, let's just go back a sec. So, you're working with your dad. You did your first big job on the roof, like, and now you've got a taste for it. At what point and was it a conscious decision or was it maybe a nudge from your dad? He went left, you went right versus working together under one banner. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, so we do work technically under one banner. Like, you go to our website, Roderick Builders, it's the same for both of us, right? I help him, he helps me, but, legally, we separate, but that's mostly because we build in 2 separate states. So, like, if we're doing a job in California, I'll help him. If I'm doing a job in Utah, he'll help me, but we help each other in our expertise. But we separate because the division of how our businesses are run in the Utah versus the California markets they're very different, right? So we do separate both the legalities and the books, and they're both very clean operating businesses, but they're just done differently. On top of it, I have a partner here who is not involved in the projects out there, and that's fine too. Yeah, there was not really any other reason other than that.
So it was geography that dictated it because your
Yeah,
dad was in California.
yeah,
So
yeah.
are you running then in essence 2 LLCs under the
Mhm.
same umbrella?
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
yeah.
And then in terms of profit and loss, whatever you make, whatever he makes, he makes.
Yeah, I mean, so every once in a while there's crossover, maybe some bonuses back and forth as we've helped each other, right? But for the most part, it stays pretty clean and separate.
So getting back to we were talking about I guess we kind of introduced without saying it systems. At what point in your evolution as you're building did you realize um, I use martial arts as an equivalency. When I used to competitively fight, my coach would say, "Hey, that's a really good way of blocking a punch using your face, but there is a better way to do it." At what point did you realize that, yeah, I could keep going down this path, but there's got to be a way to incorporate systems? And when did that light bulb come on for you?
Oh man, I think it was really day one. I just because I had built some other businesses previous and even sold them, and they had some good systems and some good marketing, but I didn't totally know how to do it in the building world because if I followed the footsteps of almost everyone in the industry, it's still done wrong. I mean, there's very few people that, in my opinion, do it right. And it's such a I'm not going to call it corrupt, but it's such a broken industry, right? Because, like I said, there's so many people who are great at their craft. They are good builders, but they are terrible at running their business. I mean, I was talking to my AV guy the other day about this, and I'm like, dude, you belong in the field. He's like, I know. I was like, so you need to hire other people to take over the rest of your business for you. And he's like, I know. And then it goes the flip side, right? There's builders that have no clue what's even happening on their job sites. They're completely clueless, right? And I saw all that, right? And that's really why I didn't even enter the industry on my own for such a long time. I went and did all these other things, but I always knew I was going to come back to it. And so day one, I really just kind of went into it. Look, I wanna understand everything. I want to know how to do everything. It doesn't mean I'm gonna be great at it, but I want to wear all these hats. So as we implement systems, I can know the pain points that I want to implement. And maybe that made me scale slower, right? And that's fine. But that was kind of my method, and probably why it took so long to enter the industry is really had a lot of observing to do.
Yeah, but that would be a wise way to do it. Like, you can jump into the lake off a diving board and then discover the hard way it's only 2 feet deep versus, there's a deep end and you're not going to get hurt. You chose the wise way, which is let me try to accumulate as much skill as I can. And I would say skill, but more of an understanding of all the different facets that are
Mm,
involved. So even though you're not doing them day to day, you can tell instantly what a good trade person is doing versus a bad one.
yeah, yeah. And and again, that's attributes to my father and my grandfather, right? Like they taught me those skills, now to go do them, and now my business skills from other things have taught me how to relay that on to, um, our sub trades or our employees.
I don't want to say it's a trick question, but it's going to make you think. Let's say for a minute we were to sit down for 30 minutes, and I'm going to ask you, Trapper, tell me how is it that you make money? And think about that for a sec. How do you actually make money? Because builders will say, "Well, we build houses." Okay, But if you're not handling change orders properly, or there's a myriad of pitfalls that you can stumble into. So the trick is avoiding them, knowing which ones to avoid. But bringing it back to the basics, how do you actually make money?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And if you would have asked me that question, the first 3, 4 years I was in business, I would have answered that like, "Oh, I just have my markup, my cost plus, and we make money." But the reality is, if you dive really, really deep into the books of all the contractors that are building residential homes, anyone that says that they're cost plus 10 or cost plus 15, the reality is those people are probably just they're losing money. The money that's in their account isn't theirs. So we run what's called a work in progress report. And that work in progress report tells us at any given moment the money that's in our account, how much of it is ours and how much of it is our clients. And even though we maybe will have $1 million or $2 million in our account, how much of that we actually earned, right? Because in contracting, you're collecting massive deposits. You have tons of money coming in all over the place, and you need to separate it from one client to the next. You're not just making money off of your markup, but you need to have your overhead covered, right? How much of this overhead from this is going specifically towards this job, and helping the client understand that. And then, you know, we're all as a builder, we're educating people, we're educating other builders, we're educating clients, we're educating architects. So how do you build a pool of other revenue streams, right? So we have brand partners that some of them are maybe compensating us. We have brand partners that are maybe providing material to us at discounts because we promote their stuff. So there's a lot of ways that as a builder, we're making money. Sometimes on our spec homes, we don't make any money until the house sells, but you have to know your numbers. And I can tell you, if you go survey most builders across the country, they're not making money and they don't realize it. And it's pretty sad.
That for custom builders, that is, what do you want to call it? The intoxicating trap that they look into their accounts and they see all this money, and it's accounts that are commingling. But
Yeah.
as you said, it's not their money. It's for the Joneses, and this one's for the Smiths and whatever. And it's when they lose track of that and think, oh, yeah, we can spend money like drunken sailors. Then it comes back and bites them in the ass.
Yeah, totally. It's really sad, and I'll be honest, I was a victim of that initially. I thought I had learned that, and I hadn't, right? And so, it took me till about 3.5 years in to really like, okay, scrap everything that we were doing and dive really, really deep. Where are we bleeding? Because it's not obvious. It's not always obvious in a construction company. But as soon as you start like patching those holes and you realize and you have good mentors to learn from, running these reports using great softwares like Buildertrend or Adaptive or Resio and in tracking every micro thing, not just looking at your credit card statements and your bank account. Yeah, you can make a lot of money and you can really enjoy it and you can change people's lives.
You kind of remind me of my kid brother, and because he's got this eclectic skill set, which I'm assuming that you do too. And let me kind of unpack this. He's an engineer, right? But prior to that, we were working for my dad, and my dad had an air compressor company. So for the summers, we'd go there, we'd tear apart air compressors. We were covered in oil from neck to toe. And these were in the days that before carcinogenics and nice labeling. So, for example, we would use Toluol, like bath water, to take the oil off our hands, and which
Mm.
is like, it'll kill you, but, here I am
Yeah.
today. But the point is, Mark could easily rip something apart, right? He could be covered in grease. Give him 5 minutes in a bar of soap, he could put on a suit and tie, and he can now be conversing with the CEO of a company. And Ingersoll Rand swooped in after he became an engineer and imported him to Carolina, and that's where he's been for the past, I think, 25 some odd years. And it's because he had that ability to speak to somebody on the shop floor. And then, as I said, put on a tie. And now he's unpacking everything out front of a board of executives. And you strike me as having that same kind of skill set, that you've got the tactile ability to do the thing, but then you can step back and observe how all the pieces are coming together like a good conductor.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. I see it as a compliment, so thank you. I think my time away from construction really kind of helped prepare me for that because I all I knew was really construction and swinging a hammer and knowing how to get dirty, kind of growing up. And I was pretty timid, wasn't great at conversation. I was good with people, but like I wasn't this outgoing person, per se. Had a bunch of failures in life and had to learn things a lot of the hard way. But, on the subject of suit and ties, I still own a necktie company today, a luxury necktie company. I love, the fashion side of the world. I owned a haberdashery, which we made custom suits for people all across the United States. And that taught me so much because I had all my clients were wealthy businessmen or wealthy athletes. And so I had to really be in a position to learn how to communicate with all different kinds of walks of life. But I also got to observe them and learn their skill sets and ask them questions. It's like I had, free mentors, right? They were paying me. Uh, so yeah, I'm so glad I got to go down that path. And it was like the most meant to be thing, because it just prepared me to do what I love, that much more.
That is so friggin' cool. So are you still involved with haberdashery?
When someone asks, I never sold the brand. I sold all the customers because I loved my brand and I knew one day I'd probably start it up for fun. But yeah, when a friend or a family member asks, yeah, I'll make them something.
Oh, so we should be talking about the next National Association of Home Builders event that I'm going to. You're the
Yeah,
man. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Note
We'll
to
talk.
self. Yeah.
Well, I
Cool.
mean, when I was at the last IBS, I think I was walking around in a purple blazer, and everyone's like, "What the heck are you doing?" But I mean, that's just me. I've got so many blazers and suits, and
Yeah, I like
that
color too. There's some, I don't say it's because it's standing out, but I got that from my dad. He just loved bright colors.
yeah.
Which is funny because he would be the quintessential builder. Like, in this case, he worked with his hands on machines, heavy,
Mhm.
machinery and stuff like that, but he loved to get dressed up. After he cleaned up, he loved to get dressed up, and I think I get that from him. But side note, go back to something you said, a compliment. I haven't mastered the art of subtlety, so if I'm gonna insult you, you're gonna know. Like with crayons and fire, blade, like, there's no middle ground, you'll know.
Okay.
So when I pay you a compliment, 100% it is, 'cause when I say, "You remind me of my brother," I love that guy to bits. We've gone through fire together, and, it really warms my heart to see where he is now versus where he was before.
Very
And,
cool.
yeah, so I meant that with all due respect, but let's get back to you looking at the business, and I wanna dive into maybe the AI side. Let's separate AI from systems. What would have been the first system that you implemented, be it a software package or AI? What was it?
Oh, for us, it was, a project management software. We dove deep into, your co-constructs and your builder trends. As simple as it was, I mean, initially, it was just for scheduling and note taking and daily logs. But then as we really started scaling, then all of a sudden you've got all these receipts and bills coming in, and you've got a bill for this dumpster, but now you need to make sure you're separating that dumpster, and that dumpster all in different jobs, right? So you're billing them differently because that one was $600 and that was $900, right? So, it quickly jumped into accounting systems, more than anything. And it's a never ending evolution, right? Especially with how quick things move today or the way AI is being implemented and using credit cards or using cash. And so all of the above, but I mean, the most important thing is accounting for sure. I mean, if you're any builder at any level, I'm gonna tell you get your accounting systems in place now.
Was that something that you learned the hard way? Like, was there a
Yeah,
moment where, we talked about commingling of funds, and you don't know what you don't know until now you know?
yeah, exactly. I mean, it was totally the hard way on a couple different levels. I mean, I can tell you a story that happened, years ago. We did all the right things, but there was just a few micro things that we do today that make a world of a difference. And so, like, we were keeping track of all of our bills. We did estimate properly. The client was approving change orders all within, our softwares. And so, but the client was still shocked at the end of the job. They were like, how are we $400,000 over budget? Which on this job was a pretty big swing. It was about a $1.5 million initial budget, so now we're pushing closer to 2 million, right? And that makes it unfeasible for some people. And I totally understand it. Why he was frustrated. But the frustrating part for me was he saw the change orders, he saw the budget changing. They were his decisions that impacted that, right? But the simple system of on every invoice, showing what the updated budget was and what the total amount of approved change orders were, even though he could go to one page and see the change orders, and he could go to a different page on our biller software and see the estimates. Now on every single invoice, it's always updated front and center before you even see what the bill is. Here's your original budget. Here's your budget today. Here's the amount of approved change orders. Here's how much you've paid us to date. Here's what you have projected to pay us left, right? And here's what's due today. And that simple, small change has made a world of a difference to where no client could ever be upset with us. Because in that situation, that exact situation, even though I did everything right, I felt guilty. I felt bad. I mean, we get so attached to our clients. We want them to be happy. We want them to, if we do our job too well, then they're hopefully going to recommend us to people because they're never going to be a client again. We just built them their dream home, right? They're happy. And if they're not happy, then they're going to blast us and we're not going to get any referrals and you just wasted 2 years of your life, right? So, like, of course you want them to be happy. So we feel guilty. We take a bunch of the money off the bill. And next thing you know, like, we thought we cut it down to just what our costs were for him to make it feasible for him. But the reality is, like, so much of our overhead had already been spent on that job. So what turned into a $400,000 swing actually probably turned more into a $600,000 swing, which created a lot of debt. And that was only like 3 years into my business. Like, we had all the right systems in place, but like that one small thing has made an immense amount of difference moving forward. But it drastically impacted me so early on, which created so much debt for just doing a favor.
Do your clients have access? Like, I know you talked about invoicing, but is it transparent in that, like an app that they can log on and see in real time?
If it's a cost plus job, yes, they will be able to see every receipt. They can track it in real time. I mean, when I say real time, it's maybe 7 days behind at a given point, but it's usually pretty close to being up to date. So cost plus jobs, yes. If it's a fixed price job, they see the budget and they see the change orders and they see how much they've spent. So
How often are you communicating that? So, again, based on your clientele, you've got people, I don't mean this in a bad way, but if they're buying, this is a second home, it's a recreation home, 10,
yeah,
15 million dollars,
yeah.
they're not really, how we say, dollar conscious, right?
I mean, you'd
But you
like to
want
think
them to
that.
be informed.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
yeah,
not that way.
yeah. I mean, it's shocking. I mean, doesn't the reality is like I mean, I think I don't own second homes, right? So I sit there and think like, okay, yeah, it's the second home for them. It's 15 million bucks. No, they're just as price conscientious as you or I would be on a five or $600,000 home, right? Like, it's just the truth. They are just over different things, right? They might care more about their AV system and nickel and dime you over why their drywall so much. I mean, it's just over different aspects. I mean, keeping them involved is critical, right? And so, you know, we want to keep communication with them weekly. So we send them a weekly update. But something we've implemented not too long ago is even though they're getting all the information, they're seeing it on their invoices, they're seeing it on their daily logs, we want to have a monthly budget meeting with them just so it's like it's very verbal, it's front and center. And right from the beginning of the job, early on, we're telling them like, hey, this is a painful thing. Like, you're spending a lot of money and you're risking a lot. You're putting a lot of faith in us. And so these are just some of the things that we're gonna do. And so it allows us to build smoother and not ever have any contention because essentially we're getting married for the life of this job.
I guess a lot of that could be addressed when you're doing your pre-construction, and I know you're a stickler about that, the amount of time that you would put in relative to another builder. It seems like that'd be something you're doing at the very beginning, which is we're going to set the expectations. Here's how we do business. And I would
Awesome.
say, hey, Trapper, as this unfolds, I've got to ask you, can I be honest with you? And of course, everybody wants you to be honest. And I was doing this in real estate when I
Uh-huh.
was selling. I'm still a broker. And I'd say, okay, Trapper, can I be brutally honest?
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah. Can I be honest to the point where I make you cry? So now I've set the runway, how much latitude that I have. And
Uh-huh.
by setting those expectations in advance, it eliminated any of the, well, you never told me this, or
Yeah.
how was I supposed to know scenarios. And there was something I used, I called it the 99 turbulences, where within a real estate transaction, there was these common things that would occur. Like, the appraisal came in too low, financing fell through, whatever those things are. And right at the very beginning, as we're getting ready to go down the path of either buying or listing, I would give them this list of turbulences. And where it really came in handy is after the deal was done. So let's call it in the US, you call it in the escrow period. Up here, we call it the closing period. So that could be 30 days, 60 days, whatever that is. So now they're wondering, okay, what has Michael done for me lately? Because I've already bought, I've already sold, but it hasn't closed. So what have you done for me lately? And then I get the phone call in a mad panic. Well, that goes back to the first meeting that we had when I set the expectations. Trapper, remember when we first got together, take a look at your list, number 24, where it says appraisal didn't go through. Hot dog, it's just a normal day. Everything is okay. So setting that expectation was once we get the deal done, you're not going to see all the work I'm doing after the fact to make sure the deal actually closes.
Yeah.
But that was part of setting the expectations. I would have to think that you're doing something very similar. And again, with your clientele being so picky. And, anecdotally, yeah, you say, yeah, they're not conscious about money. But that's how they made the money in the first place, because obviously they were conscious about it. And that's why they're in the position they're in. So tell me more about your pre-construction process. Is it like checklist driven? Is there a template behind it? How does that work?
There is for all of it, yes. Does it ever go exactly all the same? No, it doesn't. So the day one with the client, we want to figure out what the budget is because maybe they're an investor. Maybe this is a spec home that they're going to sell. Maybe they're an investor on a project that we're interested in. Maybe it's a legacy home, but we still want to make sure that they have enormous amounts of equity in it, right? So, like, we kind of start with a budget, create that A to Z, top to bottom, in simple format, not in my cost coded format, but A to Z and easy items that they can understand, right? Wallpaper, refrigerators, you know. So there's the top category that explains, hey, these are the non-negotiables for the size of home that you're talking about. This is likely what the skeleton of the house is going to cost, right? Obviously, we haven't designed a home yet, but this is likely what it's going to be. So now you've got this much money left to play with. Now you can just kind of move it around, right? Because these things you don't need, or you need them, but how much of it do you need, right? And so we kind of do that if I'm the first one to meet them, and I also want to understand what some of their design intentions are, because that way I can guide them to this architect versus that architect. Because we have got such great relationships with so many. Um, you know, is it a local person? Does it need to be someone that you can meet with in person? And all these things. How much budget do you have for an architect? It plays a big role as well. Telling them that sometimes it's you know going to save them money if they hire a more expensive architect because they will understand how to stack things and plan for HVAC and engineering and things like that. Right? That's really the first part of the process. After that, a lot of it kinda goes out the window, I mean, other than, estimating and getting all the plans on the same page, but yeah, that turbulence that you speak of, we do a lot of that preparing for all the oopsies, right? Or the uh-ohs or the roadblocks of, "Hey, there's gonna be all these things that are gonna make you think that, this isn't meant to be, but these are relatively normal. And here's all the stories and examples of what has happened in the past. And so we'll get through it.
The high-end spec that you're doing, that is such a distinct beastie. There's a guy that I interviewed in Miami, I can't think of his name right now. He came over in, 2019, just as COVID was rearing its ugly head, and he was buying, court sales. And then he'd go in and, fix and flip. But
Uh-huh.
now he's doing homes that range anywhere from somewhere in your range. I think the bottom
Mhm.
end would be around 5 to 7-ish and as high as 40,000,000.
Uh-huh.
And the thing that I found really remarkable is he, what's the word I'm looking for? Buffers himself or protects himself. He knows when he's building a high end thing like this, he may not have a client immediately because he's building on spec. But what he does, his mindset is when he builds something, he builds it for himself. And he's very current on what the tastes are, what the trends are, but he's cautious not to overly invest in a trend that may be here today and gone tomorrow. So
Yeah.
he's got a good grasp on what people want. So here we are in a high-end home, maybe let's say 10,000,000. It's on the market, fully furnished, plates on the table, knives and forks. And if it's not selling within the first 30 days, then he's got a list of tenants ready to go that are transient. Obviously, they're high-end people that are businessmen, executives, whatever. They move in and they know that they can be booted out in 30 days notice. And so
Very
now
cool.
he's generating a cash flow to offset what he's paying in terms of interest to the bank to maintain this thing. Do you have any strategies like that in place, or have you ever had to do that, or do your properties sell that quickly? Let me wind that back even further. You wouldn't put the shovel in the ground unless you're confident that you've got something that's gonna sell, I don't say relatively quick, but let's say within your marketplace, 60 days, 90 days?
Yeah, I would say 90 to 120. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So my spec home background is really interesting. So a lot of the largest dollar figure of spec homes that we've done, we were always brought in as the builder or the consultant. We were not necessarily the ones that had really any skin in the game other than we had upside in the end, and we had the privilege of building it and consulting along the way of showing these wealthy people how to make money doing it, right? So 40, 50, 60, $100 million spec homes, right? As far as like whether it's sold or not or when it's sold or not, like it didn't totally affect us with a lot of them. And a lot of their plan was, oh, we'll rent it out for parties and things like that. And they did, but what my strategy is at least the ones that we fund or we get funded on our own is a couple things. I build in a place where population growth is rising drastically. So Park City, Heber, right? Like tons of people are just flooding into that market. Where's the opportunity that's being missed, right? So the homes that are 7 million plus, like there aren't great ones on the market for sale. So build something great, and that the 7 million and up really sells a lot faster because they tend to be a lot better than the $5 million. And so you're building something, and then now you involve really great architecture, right? Which is why we push hard for great architects, amazing, amazing architects, not just the guy who can get the job done and check mark all the boxes, because that person can create emotion where somebody walks in and they're going to be willing to do just about anything to own that house because they've got to have it, right? Like they're just begging and, oh, daddy, can you buy this for me? Or husband, can you buy this for me? Or whoever that might be, you got to buy this for me, right? So you create such emotion that they cannot stop thinking about it. So that's just some of it. But the Park City market's so interesting because so much you got tourists, right? So you could market to short term rental. You could market to fractional ownership because a lot of people can afford $1 million home, but how many people can afford a $4 or $5 million home, right? Not as many, right? So, and you realize some people are out here for the summers and they want the lakes and the mountain biking and the golf, and other people are out here for the winters, right? So fractional ownership is another opportunity. And then you just look at like what is actually available. There's really not a lot of people in this market who are building amazing things. There's a few who are, right? And I love some of my competitors. I love them, right? Like they only make me that much better because they're raising the standards, right? But those homes, those sell really fast, or they've never been available for sale because they were built for somebody else, right? So the best homes that are on the market, they go super super fast. So my whole philosophy is don't skip corners. Don't just do that because you need don't pick that selection just because you need a selection. Like be very intentional with everything and it will sell.
It's almost counterintuitive. I've got a friend, he's a Remax agent, and here in Ontario, there's an area called the Muskokas. It's like the vacation heartland,
Mhm.
like infinite number of lakes. Goldie Hawn, Steve Martin, Schwarzenegger, all these people have homes there, summer
Uh-huh.
homes in Ontario, Canada. And when the market was shifting a couple years back, these are like what you have in Utah, they're secondary homes, vacation places. They're the first thing that go. So when the market starts tanking, the first thing that people get rid of are their luxury items. And everything that was around, let's say 5 million and lower was just dumping. It was fire sale. And John was telling me the stuff that was 5 million and above, he couldn't keep up.
Mhm.
Not with the listing side. He couldn't keep up with the sales because there was so much demand, and people were coming in from Dubai, all over the world to buy in Muskoka,
Yeah.
but everything was 5 million and above.
Yeah.
It strikes me that you're in a similar market in that respect, that people are looking for the exclusivity. They're looking for, I guess that uniqueness in what it is that you're building. Am I on the
Totally.
right track there?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, and you got to think, I mean, someone who's leveraged to the teeth, right? So, someone who's buying a 3, 4, $5 million home, like that person probably is getting a mortgage. They are, right? I mean, at least my experience, they typically are. And so they're going to be impacted a lot more by by inflation and whatnot, right? But someone who's paying cash for a 10 or $15 million house, like, they're just not as impacted as much. If anything, they're probably making more money when markets shift because they knew how to play the market. So that's definitely part of it. And then, COVID helped Utah a lot because, well, I mean, people saw like quality of life being important, working from home. So people want to go to where is quality of life better? Where can I work and have a great place to live? Well, Utah. Then you see that the Olympics are coming here again in 2034. Well, that's huge. I mean, people don't realize how many billions of dollars are being dumped into the Utah market. I don't like telling everybody they're ruining my state, but hey, at least I make a living off of it, right? But I mean, even just the largest data center was announced like 4 days ago by Kevin O'Leary, right? Where's it being built? Utah. Largest data center in the world, not just in the United States. Here in Utah, we have what we call Silicon Slopes, which is like a little mini version of the Silicon Valley. It's got Oracle, Adobe, I mean, all these like cool tech companies. I mean, so there's just so much happening in Utah, people don't even realize it.
Let's talk about that for a sec. You said data centers, data centers. That's a thing that's a real sore spot in Texas right now because land is abundant. But what they're finding is, from a builder's perspective, trying to find the land is tough because they're competing now against data centers. So much so that it's about the infrastructure, it's about the water, it's about the power. And municipalities and towns, cities are being, what's the word I'm looking for? Not bribed. What's a friendly word of saying incentivized? That's the word, incentivized. That if they go with a data center, they're going to make an infinite more amount of money in revenue than they would have individual tax on homes. Are
Yeah.
you finding that, and maybe Utah is spared from that devastating effect, but is it hard for you to find land?
I mean, land's not affordable. I mean, all lots that we want to build spec homes on are a million five plus for a lot, right? So, but I'm sure for like, I have friends who build density, who like buying land, and yeah, they say it's hard to find. So I don't know the direct impact of that. I'm sure it'll make it worse because we'll also need more housing. But I also know our states run really well. Like, the state in general tends to have their head on straight compared to other states. And so my guess is they probably, yeah, they might be incentivizing these data centers, but they're probably also making them kick in a lot to help, solve water problems or solve energy problems. So that's my
Maybe
guess,
Utah will be spared from the influx as long as they keep running reruns of Yellowstone.
right?
Because didn't they just ruin Montana? Like, apparently there's just a deluge of people going to Montana because they never knew it was even on the map.
Well, yeah, I mean, the funny thing is more than half of Yellowstone was filmed, pretty much in my backyard. Right here in
Okay.
Park City, and even
Yeah.
like all the new like the Marshalls and all that stuff, it's being filmed here. So
So let me ask you this question. So I want to talk about, like, you've got brass balls, and I mean that it's a compliment. Okay, I don't want to hear them dingle.
thanks.
But the fact that you went from being on a roof and now you're building these multi-million homes, what gave you the confidence to dive right into the deep end versus, hey, maybe we should start off with doing some track homes, entry level homes, or as they say, obtainable homes. What was it that motivated you to just jump right into the deep end? Or was it a dive right in, or was it a subtle ascent?
I no, I mean, I've done a little bit of all of it. I have, but I'll be honest, like, I don't know how to build a track home. So like, for instance, it's not something I'm proud of, but I've hired another track home builder to build my new home. And people are like, "Why aren't you building your own house?" I'm like, "Well, because I can't afford myself." And it's not that, and they're like, "Oh, you're that expensive?" No, I'm not that expensive. I actually just don't know how to build that kind of house. I don't. I don't know how to build at that level and not want to inherently change things to make them better, down to insulation or the framing, like just the basics of what I would call the non-negotiables. I don't know how to do that at a lower level because to me, it's criminal to build it for lesser quality. Like, I'm just doing a disservice. And so, I'm really going to kind of attribute my dad though, because I was on so many of his super cool houses that he was building for, the Hollywood stars at the time. And I just got to see such beautiful, cool things like that. I said, like, you walked in, you could feel something. And so I just really grew up not really knowing how to do anything different. Like, yeah, sure, can I install a cheap baseboard or make your stairs? Yeah, I can, but like again, I that's just where I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable in this space, and yeah, it's absolutely scary and terrifying. But yeah, we built tiny homes for a while as well. Like we did like 400 modular tiny homes, but we're still building other homes on the side. So like that taught me some cool lessons about, supply chain, taught me about, scaling and repetition and how to create jigs and systems and for different things like that. And built a bunch of modular saunas, similar, all in a warehouse and systemizing things like that. So, but yeah, I would, my first remodels, they were fix and flips that I was, buying a $500,000 house and I was turning it into a eight or $900,000 house. So like wasn't cheap. They still weren't starter homes.
I don't wanna say you were spoiled, but, if I were to compare you to an artist, you've got access to an unlimited array of colors that you can play with.
Yeah.
And then if you look at track, now I'm asking you to paint in grayscale.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. Like it's so interesting. I mean, some people think I'm like some trust fund baby, right? I didn't have money growing up. I was around extreme wealth all the time, but I didn't have any access to that money, right? So I think what it did is, I look at like the Jacobson side, like they built this massive empire and they gave us access to, a beach house here or there or a cabin and so like I got to use these things, right? And I got to see what life could be like if you do this and you give and you help and you educate others, right? So like that was so cool. And then on my dad's side, like we got to build these amazing homes, right? Like, but all it was is really educational. It's not like I was had all this money in my back pocket, but yeah, again, it allowed me when I went into any space to see it differently. How could we make this better? How could we make this feel better? And so I loved like remodels for the longest time. Like because you could only make it as good as it could be. Where, a blank slate, new house, like, just endless options, right? And so, yeah, I was spoiled. I had all the colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do a lane change here for a second to talk about money for a bit. When you are looking at a potential deal, what are the factors that are in aviation, they call it go, no go, that you're
Uh-huh.
flying out on a rescue mission, you've got so much gas in the tank, you're out there to rescue the person, but you're watching the needle. And it gets to the point where, okay, we've got so much time left that we have to find this person and turn around. If we don't turn around, we're dead. What's the go, no go zone for you when it comes to building something? And then what's your capital stack look like? How do you actually put it all together?
I'm doing one right now, actually. It's an interesting one. So we'll use this as an example. And there's not a no go, no or go on any job because there's so many different factors. But on this particular house, right? Like this house is supposed to be, one of the best of state for the 2027 parade of homes, which is September 1st, 2027. So we don't have a ton of time to build it. It's gonna be a showstopper. It's got this three-sided infinity pool. The landowners contributed the land, so that's all set. Got the lender all lined up. Got two lenders competing against each other. Whoever is going to require the least amount of cash to close is probably going to be the winner, but also has the most interest reserve, or whichever the appraisal, which is probably likely. I mean, is going to be whichever one appraises higher at that point. But we are hitting a point where if we get to like June 15th and we're not in the ground, the house is not a reality for the 2027 parade. And this house will sell well, but it's not gonna sell nearly as well as it would if it was in the 2027 parade. And commodities are only going up. Like, lumber is still low, even people think it's high, like, it's still low, and so, like, this house is already borderline, like, for its community, like, we're hitting the very, very top tier. So, yeah, if we don't get the funding by that date, the reality is, like, that's probably a no-go. So much in fact that we had a discussion yesterday of, should we get excavation started with some caveats and risk a little bit that that loan might not come through and we have to still pay for excavation. So that one's a
So you're
unique one.
getting ready to roll the
Yeah,
dice. Yeah,
we are.
that not a good
We
place
are.
to be.
Yeah, this one's a unique one, but it is going to be a showstopper. Like we know it'll sell. We know it'll sell really, really well, and it will be a one of a kind. Other times, like when you have partners, someone that's bringing you the land or something like that, like we had one deal, like just wasn't enough skin in the game for everybody to make profit on like the development side of it, right? And so we just said, hey, look, you know, there's not enough juice in it. It doesn't make financial sense for you to partner with us on this deal. So let's do this. You just hire us as the builder on this particular one, as much as I'd love to participate in the upside. There's too much unknown because of this neighborhood. We'll build it for you if you still want to move forward. Then it looks like you're going to make at least this, and then you have the potential upside to make this. We'll just build it for you at this price. Let's move forward. Cool, worked out great. So we're pretty fair with investors as far as capital stacks go. I mean, we're always looking at growing that, right? I mean, the amount of opportunities that have passed me by over the years of great deals that if I just had, that phone call for $20 million, right? Like, hey, I need $20 million in 60 days. Like, can you move? Like, yeah, I mean, I'd be a much wealthier person because I've had to pass on a few of those. They still pop up. Luckily, because of my suit network, right? Making suits and being in the haberdashery, I am often in those phone calls of where people are going to when someone's either in trouble or they know about something or it's a deal that's about ready to come to fruition. I hear about it earlier than others. So, yeah, I'm blessed, but we're always looking to grow that capital stack and we're very fair with our lenders and our investors, right? Usually they're getting a preferred return and an equity split. That way their assets protected as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about this after about sound capital because I think there'll be a good fit there.
Yeah.
Um, anything so like I use Mike Rowe's ending. I see the runway in sight. Landing gear down. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to hit?
Let's talk marketing and branding for a little bit. I mean that's such a fun part of and newer part of building, right? And the client experience. I mean, all of that really kind of wrapped into one, I think, is what makes a great home builder great. You can
Well,
know
let
your
me grab that
numbers.
one by the horns for a sec. I see that you do a lot of stuff with video, and so you and I are kindred spirits in that. I taught realtors for 10 years how to get over the fear of I'm too fat, too ugly to actually hit the record button and do video.
Yeah.
And for me, it was I call it guerrilla style. Like the ugly, crappy looking video that I do will beat the one you never do every time. And I see that you're enamored by the art of doing quick video and getting it done. How has
Yeah.
that helped your business?
Well, I was one of those people. I was scared. I was afraid, right? Like I was so good at it in my haberdashery business. I even taught entrepreneurship and marketing, like at the University of Utah, off and on. But for some reason, in my home building company, I was terrified of it. But it was because I realized it was because it was so close to my heart. Like, it was so important to me, and I wanted it to be done right and perfect and blah, 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 and I wanted to be at the top of the mountain, when I started doing it, not just and then I realized, like, there's still so many people I could help and teach, and maybe it's not to get more customers, but maybe it's to teach the electrician or the other builder across the street of how they can level up. Yeah, it's helped my business, and we have a lot better brand partnerships now. Like this spec house I'm telling you about, like we have some really great brands who are contributing some really great materials. Some of them are for free, and some of them are at a heavy discount. But we're also now able to pay some money to create a docu series and document that whole entire build, and it's gonna be part of what makes that house as great as it is. Because we're able to put more in it for less, and just by putting myself out there, we get more brand partnerships for those things.
There's an expression that great is the enemy of the good. And the more you try to perfect the thing, it actually comes back and bites you because what it does is it's eliminating the, when I see somebody on video, like a knucklehead like me, it's, unscripted, it's called parasocial behavior where the person on the other side that's watching actually feels like they know you.
Yeah,
And video creates this intimate relationship of know, like, and trust if you're being authentic. And the trap, if you will, is when they meet you and you are scripted and all this other stuff, there isn't a cohesion, a consistency between what they saw and what they expect they're going to meet. So if you can just dig into who you are and create just dumb clips, like a perfect example, Cody, like Cody Clark Holmes, and he's in Texas.
yeah,
Find him on Facebook.
yeah,
He's just blasting out short little 30-second, 60, vignettes of here I am on the site. We're just putting down the foundation. Oh, here we are putting on the drywall. And he's almost taking you on the hero's journey of the home being put together. And what it does is when people are thinking about buying a home, they've seen Cody in his element. And when they meet him, there is that consistency between what they saw, what they expect they're going to get, and what they do get.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess that is probably the thing that's blessed me with my clients, and I just don't realize it. But yeah, oftentimes someone will message me on Instagram, or when I sit down with someone in person, they feel like they know me more than I know them because they've already gotten to know me through our social media channels, and it's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not calling them fans. I mean, some of them are fans, but yeah, I mean, I had the coolest message on Monday, and it was from this person. She said, "I wish we would have built with you." And I look her name up, and we had a conversation years ago, and we did, propose building her home. And the fact that she's followed us and kept in touch in her own way is kind of cool. So yeah, it's a
What
great
a
way to soften it.
friggin' amazing testimonial that is. I wish we had built with you.
I know. That's like, how do you display
Oh
that
man, there's got to be a way you
without?
can
I
leverage
know,
that. Come
I
on.
know, I know.
Yeah.
Without it being so public and dogging the other guy, because the other guy is a good guy, but, they just aren't
Well,
a
you don't
good
want to
fit
name
for
the
each other.
builder, but
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, man.
yeah,
Okay, lane change, man. I'm going to put the gears down here. I call this rapid fire,
okay,
and I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Don't overthink it.
alright,
Just buckle up.
yeah,
I'm going to give you a sentence. You fill in the missing bit. Ready to
okay,
go?
yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Builders get in trouble when they pretend.
To be someone they're not,
The fastest way to lose money is.
not know which money's yours,
Most builders don't actually know.
what they don't know,
Good one. The ones who scale all have this one thing in common.
systems, processes, and money management,
One thing I don't tolerate on my jobs anymore is.
eating inside.
Cool. Okay. Personal side. When I finally get that rare hour, an hour to myself, what I enjoy doing the most is.
Oh, so many things. Golf, movie, nap.
Oh man. Okay. Boring. One place that always helps me reset, reflect clearly is.
Oh, surfing. Yeah, and surfing
Wow.
anywhere. Yeah,
I'm thinking Utah surfing. What's wrong with this?
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
know, right? Yeah.
Um, a book, a movie, or a quote that stayed with me longer than expected is.
Oh, it says, it was the title on this guy's desk. Well, it wasn't the title, but it was the plaque. It says, "What have I done to enrich the lives of others today?" Today.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Leading with the giving hand. Very nice.
Mm.
The one thing that people are surprised about when they get to know me.
Really good question. I'm gonna have to ask some people, but, I'd probably say that just how opinionated and design oriented I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed one builder. He said, "I play the tuba." It's like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Last question. What a thoughtful gift. As I unwrapped the package, to my delight and surprise, I found a.
Coffee table book.
Cool. Okay. My friend, we've covered a lot of runway here. I'd like to end it by saying to be continued because I think there's so much, especially on the marketing side, that we didn't tap into.
Yeah.
So let's leave it at that. To be continued. And we'll do a part two.
Let's do it. Thank you.
Any parting words before we?
Yeah, I mean, I'm easy to find. Like, there's not a lot of trappers out there. Roderick builders follow us, and I am definitely here to help others. So, if anyone listening has just questions, concerns, or needs a, s- a friendly voice that's going through the same journey they are, it's a lonely world out there in building. So, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, in the show notes, we'll have all the corresponding links where they can find you on social media and your website and everything else. So they'll
Awesome.
hunt you down, my friend. Again, thanks for taking time out today.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thanks for listening to Builder Straight Talk. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. Until next time, keep building smarter. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.